Back when I was growing up playing games in the peak age of the 2000s and the early 2010s, seriously, it's not nostalgia, games back then were just insanely good for no reason. And a common trend for a lot of these games was the fact the main character never spoke, like, ever.
Yeah, we love you too.
Even when they did speak, it was usually used for a gag that would confuse and shock every other character around them.
I'm gonna skull fuck that bitch.
Hope you don't mind hepatitis.
What?
It didn't matter what genre you were playing, it could be a first-person shooter, an RPG, an open world, and hell, even a horror game. There was a high chance you were gonna be playing as a silent protagonist. As time went on, something changed though. A lot of people started to kinda hate the silent protagonist trend, and it feels like that push made games start to focus way more on the narrative and cutscenes, requiring a voiced protagonist to make the story be taken more seriously.
Snack?
I do not need a snack.
And as this silly little dog says,
there is nothing worse for a game's story than a silent protagonist.
I don't think this is true though, as I actually prefer the narrative of games that have silent protagonists, for the most part. It really does heavily depend on the genre of game, and I wanted to highlight some examples of genres where a silent protagonist just works better, in my opinion. I know what platform I'm uploading this to, so I need to make it clear right now that some of my favorite games ever do actually have voiced protagonists, okay? Hell, some of my favorite characters ever are voiced, and I would argue that some games would not work narratively at all without a voiced protagonist. So yes, despite the title, this video is just my opinion. Anyway, on to the first genre. Am I gonna start 2025 by mentioning The Evil Within? You fucking know it. In my most recent video about the second game, I go into how I find the original way scarier, and the reason as to why is because of how the game handles the main character Sebastian. In the sequel, he kind of never shuts the fuck up, like it's kind of annoying how much he just states the obvious and reacts to the shit he's seeing.
Shit. That really is a stronghold.
That we can also see the game doesn't need to tell us.
That's one of the search team. Baker.
They mainly made this change because the original was heavily critiqued for how much of a blank slate Sebastian was. He would hardly react to anything he would see, and any form of dialogue actually spoken during gameplay was incredibly rare, and it was done in such a deadpan way.
Fire seems to work.
This lack of dialogue and personality for Sebastian enhanced the horror of the original in my opinion. Not having him react to anything lets you react for him, putting you into his shoes in these fucked up situations. And by doing so, you don't feel like you're accompanied by a character anymore, you feel kind of isolated. Like, Sebastian isn't a character accompanying you, he is you. The one playing the game, the one experiencing all of this fucked up shit, it's you. Then in the sequel, him constantly yapping makes it feel like he's there watching you play the game, making commentary on the shit you're seeing, which in turn makes shit far less eerie and isolating. The best example of a comparison between a voiced and non-voiced protagonist in a horror game is the original Dead Space compared to the Dead Space remake. One of the biggest differences between these two wasn't the graphical improvements and terrible Unreal Engine 5 stuttering because it's a dog shit engine. No, the biggest change was the fact they gave Isaac a voice. To give the game credit, they did an amazing job with this, being very faithful to the series, bringing back the voice actor for him in Dead Space 2 and the one we try not to think about too much, that being Gunnar Wright. And just like with Dead Space 2 and the one that should not be named, he did an amazing job in the remake enhancing the story. Though, just like I said with The Evil Within 1 and 2, Gunnar Wright voicing Isaac makes the remake far less scarier than the original. In the original, Isaac obviously didn't speak. The only sounds he would make were his heavy breathing through his helmet and the occasional screaming when he's being mutilated. He wouldn't even respond to other characters talking to him, which made it feel like they were talking to you instead, making you feel like you're Isaac whilst playing. You're the one reacting to all of this horrific shit going on, and you're the one reacting to how the story is playing out. which makes it feel more personal to you, if that makes sense. A problem with horror characters talking and reacting to things makes it feel like it's the developers telling us when we should be scared or frightened by things. But the original Dead Space shows us that the lack of dialogue allows the horrific environments and events to do the talking, showing us rather than telling us when we should be afraid. Have you noticed that some of the scariest moments in horror games, even with talkative main characters, are when they aren't saying a single word? Like the introduction to the Regenerators in Resident Evil 4. That section is iconic because of the amount of people it traumatized. Now, Leon is a wisecracking goober.
I've sent my right hand to dispose of you.
Your right hand comes off?
But he does not say a single word during this section, adding to the feeling of isolation, with the only sound you can hear being the chilling breathing of the Regenerators as they hunt you down.
Hey yo.
I think a perfect example of this working incredibly well within the horror genre is the Metro series. The main character Artyom does not say a single word during gameplay, only spouting stupid exposition during loading screens, which if you have an SSD, you don't really have to listen to any of it because it loads too quickly. The game lets the world and atmosphere do the talking, and I don't think I've managed to feel this immersed in a game before, which I unfortunately can't say the same for the VR Metro game, which is weird considering it's virtual reality, which leads nicely onto the next genre where I think silent protagonists work better. So first of all, I just want to say that Metro Awakening is an amazing VR game so far, and I'm going to cover it a lot more in my next backlog video when I actually finish the game. I'm well over halfway, and one of the main gripes I have with it is the fact we play as a voiced character. It does make sense because Awakening is a prequel to the first Metro and has you playing as an established character you do encounter in 2033. I understand wanting to tell this story, and whilst it is interesting, why the fuck did they do it in VR? Since we're playing as a voiced character, dialogue moments just have you literally standing there as both of the characters talk to each other, making you feel like an uncomfortable third wheel. You don't feel like the character you're physically controlling in virtual reality, which is really annoying because you are quite literally supposed to be the character in VR. But the only form of immersion I can get is randomly trying to wave my arms to match what the character is saying, which ultimately just feels stupid. Honestly, I'm unsure why they didn't just do what the base Metro games did and had dialogue and exposition through the loading screens rather than in gameplay. This isn't something game-changing though, it's just a small gripe I have. I just think because VR is supposed to be super immersive and you're literally physically interacting with the in-game worlds, voice characters just kind of take you out of it a bit. I had the same problem with Half-Life Alyx, which is kind of insane because, you know, that game's peak. So throughout Half-Life Alyx, obviously you play as Alyx, an established character within the universe who we spend a lot of time with in Half-Life 2. She's a great character, and obviously she talks quite a bit throughout the game. But that's where the problem lies. Her talking takes quite a bit of tension out of a lot of situations in my opinion. It also suffers from the same problem I have with Metro Awakening. You kind of just feel like you're third wheeling in a lot of these situations, and having Alyx be voiced, talking to these characters, it feels extremely out of character having you do shit like this out of boredom, because it is so hard to just sit still and listen to them just yapping to each other. Now I'm going to go into spoiler territory for Half-Life Alyx, so if you haven't played the game, skip to this timestamp. Okay, at the end of Half-Life Alyx you get this scene.
We got work to do.
This scene alone says more and has had more of an impact on the community than anything Alyx says throughout the entirety of Half-Life Alyx, and not a single piece of dialogue was spoken. That's because Gordon Freeman is a silent protagonist. He's always been a silent protagonist. Yet despite this, the guy and his crowbar are seen as iconic. In fact, speaking of Gordon Freeman and Half-Life, it's time to move on to the next genre. That genre being first-person shooters. Oh well, I guess just first-person games. It's just all the ones I'm talking about involve guns. Now here are some of the most iconic characters in first-person games. What do these characters have in common? That's right, they're all basically mute. They don't say shit whilst you're playing through their games. Yet despite this, they are some of the most beloved and iconic characters in gaming history, honestly. I know you're probably confused as to why Master Chief is there because he does talk, but ironically enough, the best Halo games are the ones where he speaks the least and uses his actions to speak for him, rather than how he is in Halo 4, constantly bitching and complaining. Speaking of using actions to speak, I can't think of a better example of this than with the Doom fella. I'm gonna refer to him as Doom fella because there's Doom Slayer and Doom Guy, they're the same person. I don't want to get people mixed up. He doesn't say a word, yet despite this, you can tell exactly the type of person he is from how he reacts in cutscenes and just the general gameplay. He's an angry bloke, and yeah, again, he says fuck all, yet everyone knows about him. He's iconic. I actually think a lot of the scenes within the game are enhanced by him not saying a word, and Eternal letting us just see his face through his helmet's visor tells us more than enough about how he's feeling. Imagine if Doom had you listening to him monologue about how angry he was during downtime. People complain about the platforming in Eternal, but I'd rather that than a walking section where he talks about how he misses his pet fucking rabbit or some shit. Honestly, the only part I genuinely don't like about Doom Eternal is the part where we hear him speak.
Guts. Huge guts. Kill them. Must kill them all.
I know this is a reference to like some old ass comic or some shit, but it just makes me wince. I don't know, man. It feels very r/Doom. Again, this isn't me saying I don't like voiced characters within this genre or any of the other genres I've spoken about. In fact, the Doom fella's great grandfather, BJ Blazkowicz from Wolfenstein, is the complete opposite of him, constantly talking and whispering to himself during downtime or during dire moments to comfort himself within those games. It works for the story and for his character, but again, I find more of the scenes from Doom way more iconic compared to Wolfenstein. And hell, I think more people know about the Doom fella over BJ, despite him being a silent protagonist. My main issue with first-person games having a voice protagonist is when it genuinely adds nothing, and it just feels so unnecessary.
What a goddamn clusterfuck.
It honestly feels like whiplash sometimes. An example is when I was playing Stalker 2 for the first time, and I heard this.
So you've hit the jackpot.
Nice. What do I win?
It made me shudder when I first heard it, and it wasn't just the English voice acting. Why the fuck is a character in a game where you don't even know what they look like, and where you choose dialogue choices voiced? Oh, actually, that leads nicely onto the last genre I want to talk about. Now, I think this is where things are going to get really controversial, so I'm just going to jump right into it and not beat around the bush. Cyberpunk 2077 is a good game. It has fun gameplay and gunplay. Seriously, I love this gun with all my heart. Look at that reload animation. That is some good shit. The world is great too. Night City looks amazing and it's very immersive. Blah, blah, blah. You've heard this shit before. Now, the story, on the other hand, I kinda hate it. Now, it's not because of the writing or how everything pans out. No, the reason why I hate the story is because I hate the main character, V. Now, is V a bad character? No. Again, this is just a huge personal gripe, but I really struggle to like V because they aren't a silent protagonist. And honestly, I wouldn't have been bothered too much by all of this if it wasn't for how Cyberpunk is designed. They put so much work into customization for V, even allowing you to adjust their fucking cock and balls and minge. You can even select their origin, which ultimately doesn't feel like it changes much at all because no matter what you choose, V talks and acts the same, which kind of takes you out of the whole role-playing part of the game, you know? It really feels like all of this customization is ultimately pointless. I mean, it's cool that they allow us to do this stuff, but no matter what, you are not making your own V. They are an established character within this world. Sure, you get a few choices here and there to change the ending you get, or whatever, but they're still gonna act the same regardless. It really confuses me why they didn't just make V an established character like Geralt from The Witcher, which is another game made by the same people. I mean, they already have a design for the canon version of V. She's literally on the front cover and banner on Steam, and even in fucking Fortnite. And all of this made all of my choices within Cyberpunk feel pointless. It made me think while making choices, is this even what V would do? Not, is this what I would do? And it kind of just took me out of the story. It definitely didn't ruin running around like a mug shooting people though. The way the game is, it makes it feel just as much as an RPG as Fallout 4. Yeah, I fucking said it. Having a voiced character in that game kind of ruined the whole role-playing aspect of it too, highly limiting dialogue choices because they had to budget for a voice actor. Again, the characters Nate and Nora feel like already established characters. No matter how much you change up the character and even change the name, no matter what you do, you're gonna be in a family with a kid and you're always gonna watch your spouse die. It just doesn't make your character feel like your own character within the role-playing game, which is the whole point of a role-playing game. Now take a look at Fallout New Vegas. I want you to keep in mind I am extremely critical of this game. I actually prefer Fallout 4 over it, but as an RPG, Fallout New Vegas is quite literally perfect with how it's designed. Within New Vegas, you play as the courier. That's it, that's all you're really told. I mean, there are some other backstory things you're given, but a majority of it is shrouded in mystery. But nothing that is set in stone is enough to change how your courier is, how you want them to act. Ultimately, you're a delivery person who was shot in the head on the way to delivering a platinum chip. That's all you really need to know. It gives you room to make your own character within this world. You can make up how they act, even down to how they talk to others, because the courier isn't voiced. You use your own intuition to put the voice onto the character, making them feel like your own, enhancing the role-playing aspect of the role-playing game. I'm not saying a voiced main character doesn't make an RPG work, because I mean, look at The Witcher 3. It's like one of the most acclaimed RPGs you can play, but like I said, it works because the main character Geralt is an established character within the universe. We don't decide how they act and how they talk. That's all set in stone straight away. We don't get to customize our own Geralt. He is who he is. But I just feel like that in an RPG where you make your own character, they should be silent no matter what. So yeah, this is why I personally prefer silent protagonists in games. Let me know in the comments what you think. I'd love to know, because I thought this would be a very interesting conversation to create, because I see mixed things constantly about what people prefer regarding silent and voice protagonists. If you want to talk directly to me about it, then feel free to join my Discord server and let me know on there. Oh yeah, and if you want to help support the channel, feel free to become a channel member, or check out my Patreon. I post previews to upcoming videos and put up polls on what video I should make next. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you've all had a very good start to 2025.
Strong silent type. I like it.